Jesus shared his story on the Emmaus Road. He found two downcast travellers, if you remember the story, who were in a tiz. And Jesus informed them of the good news of all that he had taught and all that he had done at Easter. And they went away inspired. And this becomes our basic model of how to share our faith. However, we hesitate to share our faith because we don't often see the sort of results we expect in our imaginations. You may remember that I said that a game of snakes and ladders can be finished actually in 6 turns. But for most games, it takes 20 turns. The same is true from informing someone of your faith. In the time it takes them to be inspired, very rarely is there an instant response. Slow and steady wins the race. We looked at 3 perspectives of the good news, or as the church calls it, the gospel. We looked at of an outcast soul coming home, of God's faithful promises being kept, and of a kingdom of light coming. And this week, I want to ask the very real question. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Because we know the real response. We know the kind of response that we should say because we're in church and the pastor's asking the question and, we've all come in and we know what we're expecting. So we know that the real answer is, yes, of course, Steve, it's worth it. But deep in your heart, is it worth it? Is it worth sharing your faith? Have you ever been on one of those long walks, usually up a hill or even a mountain, with the intention of getting to the top? Now, I've been lucky enough. I've managed to climb the Eiffel Tower in Paris, Table Mountain in South Africa, Snowdon and Scafell Pike closer to home. I've even got to the viewpoint at Caesar's Camp. And these climbs are hard. Well, some of them. And the constant refrain as you push on is this worth it? But when you get to the summit and you look at the amazing view around you, you realise that it is. Christianity, before it was called Christianity, if you remember last week, if you're here last week, was called The Way. And by the nature of its title, it suggests that life is a journey. One with a direction to take you on, but where that might be, where you might go, might have potential incidents and obstacles to overcome as you get there. And like all journeys, the question is it worth it? Jesus said this, "Small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." Perhaps it's just me, but as a dad, when our kids were little, the idea of going for a walk always inspired that question, is it worth it? And the answer from them was always a solid no. And I'll be honest, when I was their age, when my parents suggested that we go for a walk, the answer from me was always a solid no. But over time, I questioned that. My reluctance changed to enthusiasm as I began to discover that going for a walk was worth it. There is usually a reward at the end, like a good view. But there is also the reward of the journey itself. I don't know about you, but perhaps like me, during the pandemic, you absolutely relished that 1 hour we were allowed out. I must have walked around Caesar's Camp at least 100 times. Walking was good for my mental health and for my physical health. It's a helpful analogy for faith as well for me. I became a Christian in my early 20s, and the idea of following Jesus at that point in my life was a solid no. However, over the years, I have chosen to follow him and do things as best I can his way. Is there a reward at the end? That's my belief, yes. There is a reward at the end. Are there difficulties, potential incidents and obstacles to overcome? Absolutely. As I often say, my journey of faith is awkward and stumbling. But I firmly believe that it's worth it. Here are some of the benefits that I've experienced as a Christian. A sense of belonging. Guidance on how to live a purposeful and meaningful life. Development of my character. I believe I'm a more honest, kinder, and less prone to angry person. I also have a framework to build a more ethical and honourable life for myself and my family. There's been an opportunity for me to serve and to do good, and I have made many friends, some of whom live thousands of miles away, and others who are here in this room. And these things are on top of my hope of eternal life and the grace and empowerment that comes from Christ to live that life. There are so many benefits to living a life of following Jesus. The confidence to share your faith comes from knowing the value of what you have and that bubbling over. It can't be driven by feelings of guilt or duty, but is the natural overflow of your relationship with Jesus. It's very difficult to get half-full Christians to overflow. Now, you will know what I'm passionate about, because it overflows. You've seen it on the screen. If you go into my house, you will notice certain objects, items of clothing. It overflows. A hero of mine, J. John, has so many great phrases, and one I particularly like is: a missionary is not someone who crosses the sea, but someone who sees the cross. We think of missionaries as the folk who travel thousands of miles to share their faith with others. But the hardest mile of sharing your faith is the last one. It's when the person is in front of you. So how do you overcome that last mile? How do you share your faith with that person in front of you? Sharing your faith with confidence is driven by compassion and love. Mark 6 verse 34. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. Perhaps one of the most significant acts of compassion in my lifetime, and for those who are around my age, was the organisation of Live Aid. And some of you are going, oh yeah, I remember that, and others of you go, what? Spearheaded by Bob Geldof. His heart broke for the millions of people who were dying in Ethiopia because of the famine. Some of you here work for an organisation called Compassion, supporting vulnerable young people through the positive action of sponsorship. In a world where we love to qualify everything, Compassion bypasses statistics and sees the needs of people, feels their pain, shares their joy, and desires to see their lives transformed for good. So let me ask you this question, not audience participation, don't panic. How do you see other people? Do you see them like top trump cards, making value judgments in certain categories? Or do you see their needs, feel their pain, share their joy, and desire to see their lives transformed for good? Let me ask you another question. How do you see yourself? Does your faith make a difference in your life? If so, is it something that you feel would help others who are in a tiz, for whatever reason that might be? How full is your glass? All authority in heaven and on earth is given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations. It's the Great Commission. If you're a follower of Jesus, please understand he calls you to make disciples because he's asking you to continue his work, to have compassion on others because they are like sheep without a shepherd. They're in a tiz. How many people do you know who are in a tiz for one reason or another? I reckon most people are, if they're really honest. If you're really honest with yourself, most people are in a bit of a tiz. If we love God and our neighbour, then surely the natural overflow of our love of God will be to introduce our neighbour to him. Now, there are certain things that you cannot contain the good news of. The birth of a child, falling in love, your football team winning a competition. They're great examples of this. Obviously, Southampton fans struggle to understand the last of these. But we naturally want to share our delight. You can only give away something that you've already got. You can only give away something that you've already got. The secret of sharing your faith in Jesus with confidence is knowing the value of your faith in Jesus, seeing the need others have for that faith in Jesus, and giving it away out of the overflow of your own faith in Jesus. As we come to a close, a couple of things I want you to think about. Firstly, there's been some research as to how people came to faith in Jesus. 6% came to faith because they have seen some publicity and attended an event at church. Always good to have quality events at church. Okay? 8% come to faith because they attend an activity of the church, maybe a wedding, a funeral. We don't get too many of them. But a holiday club, a youth group, something that the church does. 9% come to faith because of the personal contact of a minister or a member of staff. 77% of people come to faith because friends or relatives shared their faith with them in one way or another. Just think about that for a moment. I want this church to grow. I think you want this church to grow, not for the sake of growing, but because growth is healthy. It's what a healthy plant grows. We want it to grow. Sharing your faith with friends or family members will be 3 times as effective as any program we put on or any staff member we employ. Something to think about, isn't it? You've all gone quiet. Still with me? Excellent. Excellent. Right. Final thing. Who'd like a tenner? Anybody else like a tenner? Yeah. How did you earn it? What job did you do for me that made you earn that? No, it's a gift, isn't it? Yeah? You can hold it. Look, it's yours, all right? Okay, the second thing is, do you deserve it? You do? Okay, why do you deserve it? What have you done for me that means you deserve it? It's a little bit like our salvation, isn't it? Don't sit down. We didn't earn it. It was a free gift. Deserve the £10 on one level. On one level, yes, because we're all nice and we're Christians. But on another level, no. Do we deserve our salvation? Are we so good that we deserve our salvation? Not really. And yet it's given. It's a gift. It doesn't cost us anything. And we think there's a catch. Don't we? We think there's a catch. Going, I really want to sit down now. But I'm not going to get you to sit down because I've got another tenner for you. There you go. Now, here we go. your tenner has made a small difference to you. Theoretically, you can pay off your mum. Okay, but now you've got a choice. You can keep put your other tenner, for the first tenner, put it in your pocket. Put it in your pocket. That's it. Well done. Put it in your pocket. Right. Now, you can now give that one away. If you're a tenner up, you can give it away. Go and give it away to someone. I'm not making it easy. Well done. Well done. That's what it's like sharing our faith. If we've been given something, we know it's of value, and give it away. The benefit we've already got the benefit. Emmy's put the tenner in her pocket. But now she can share it as well. And it is difficult. That's the whole point of the illustration. It is difficult. But actually, is it that difficult to give away a tenner? It's really not, isn't it? Is it? If somebody really needs the tenner, it's not that hard. Because you know you're blessing them. You know you're giving them a good thing. And it's going to make a difference to them. But you've got to know if it makes a difference to you. That's where it starts. If your faith makes a difference to you, then it's easy to give it away. It overflows. Because you know this makes a huge difference to me. You can only give away something that you've already got. Amen?